Peter's right. I did come from the Edwards campaign. Prior to joining the Edwards campaign, I had the fun privilege of working with Howard Dean at the DNC in their internet department. But before that, before I did internet full-time, I did a little bit of everything on campaigns. I was a field organizer, I was a fundraiser. God bless you people who spend time in the call room. I did the press thing, I did a little bit of it all. And what I found was personally, I don't like to be bored. I don't like to do the same thing every day. And then if I did internet, I could stick my finger in everybody's pie and kind of make my job what I wanted it to be. Now, I disagree a little bit with Peter's original PowerPoint presentation about a paradigm shift. I think that there is a transformation happening, but I don't particularly believe that the internet is going to radically change all of our politics. I think what the internet is doing is making our politics better. It's enhancing all of the things we normally do. It's making it easier to raise money. We still have to do it because no one will pass public financing. We still have to communicate with people. We still have to get them to the polls. But now, instead of having to sit on the phone and call one by one through a list of 100 possible volunteers, you can send an email to 1,000 and within an hour have your office staffed. So I like to look at things from, I guess, a little bit more in the trenches perspective of saying how are the tools that are becoming available and the way that people are using them going to make it easier for us on the campaign or organization side to achieve our goals, to get our message out. I think it's really interesting to look at this presidential cycle because you have seen really different philosophies about how these tools can be used. On one hand, you have the Clinton campaign, which has had a more top-down structure. On the other hand, you have the Obama campaign, which has a seemingly grassroots, bottom-up kind of structure, but they've also chosen to kind of build their own space for people to come to. The Edwards campaign, I think we did a little bit of both. We wanted people to come to us. We had a kind of social network system that wasn't nearly as advanced as what the Obama campaign had to enable our volunteers to form groups, to meet up, to organize themselves. It was more geared towards kind of community service. But we also went to where people lived. We went to MySpace, to Facebook, we went to blogs, we engaged with bloggers, and we talked to them because, every day people are going on the internet to do whatever it is they're doing. They're emailing their friends, they're checking out eBay, if you're shopping, I do a lot of shopping. My dad is a collector of classic cars, and he spends a lot of time on car forums, which surprisingly have political conversations happening within their message boards. I know because they don't like John Edwards, and I would often get Google alerts from CorvetteForums.com, and I was like, gosh, that's probably my dad. So there it is. But the point is that people are living their lives online, and they're doing it in a way that means that if we want to communicate with them, if we want to communicate with the American electorate, we have to go where they are. That's why we went to TV, because people were plopped down in front of their TV, and we could interrupt their lives, and we could talk to them by putting an ad on television. Now you could choose to skip over all your ads because you have TiVo or a DVR, or you watch all your TV online, like I do. So you don't necessarily know that you're going to reach people that way. It doesn't mean that we can't reach people that way at all, but it means the way that we're doing it is changing. And so a campaign or organization that's going to be successful in this kind of new era is going to have to integrate all of these new tools into all of the things they're already doing. And that's a little bit scary for some people because they don't quite understand what it is. For them, internet has always been the department in the corner with some strange kind of young kid who can fix your computer when it breaks. That's not what it is anymore. Essentially, it's a communications department that is leveraging an entirely new media and has a little bit of ADD and likes to be part of everything that's happening. So, I think the biggest challenge that we're seeing is how does a campaign or organization that has more limited resources than what we're seeing at the presidential level, where they have millions and millions of dollars and 20 or 30 staffers working in their departments. Edwards, FYI, only like 5 to 7 staffers. But I mean, the point is at a congressional level or, a state Senate level, you have maybe 2 staffers total, a fundraiser and a campaign manager, and your campaign manager doubles as your communications director and your press secretary and your advance guy, and there's all these balls that they're constantly juggling up in the air. And so how can these tools make it easier for them to do all the jobs that they're already doing? So that's where I think that the tools and technology that we're talking about today can be of help. And there's there's different ways that all of this can be integrated into what you're doing. Mika just talked about the power of the list versus the power of the network. List these days is the holy grail of politics. How big is your list? How many people can I email right now? And building a network is a lot harder. There's these bloggers out there, and maybe they're wearing pajamas in their basement. FYI, they're not. But maybe that's what you think. People don't realize that the power of a front page post on Daily Kos may reach more people than the front page of your local newspaper these days, and it goes farther and spreads faster than something that's coming to your door. So I think that there are a lot of considerations that campaigns and organizations are looking at when they're saying, how do I move into this space? And so what I like to do is say, come on in, the water's fine. We're not going to put you through an HTML test or something like that before we let you go on the internet. I think the best thing to do is to see, what is it that you're already doing, and are the people you're trying to reach, are they doing it online? If you're an environmental organization, there are massive number of websites devoted to living green. There are bloggers who blog specifically about climate policy. There's bloggers who blog specifically about, I don't know, like, pink hair ribbons. I mean, there's something for everyone out there. The key is to having that conversation and being willing to engage in it. Being willing to say, there's people who care about this campaign that are outside of the room that we're in right now. And what are they saying? Are you paying attention to the things that people are saying about your organization or your candidate online? Do you know what's being said or where it's being said? And are you participating in that discussion? A lot can be accomplished by just a simple email to someone who may be talking about you, who maybe doesn't have the right information that you can provide them with. And at the Edwards campaign, one of the things that I was very proud of is that we didn't necessarily want to control every aspect of every discussion. What we wanted was to be able to provide our supporters with the tools and resources that they needed to spread the message themselves. So that meant, number one, knowing who those supporters were, finding them online, building a group of our kind of super activists who could act in a kind of rapid response capacity. And then once we knew who they were, finding out what it is they needed. Did they need video from us? Did they need a speech or an answer to a policy question? What is it that they were trying to do in their own kind of way to support John Edwards, and how could we enable them to do it better? And so a lot of what our department did was work to provide those resources. So maybe it wasn't as overt or, as obvious, because it wasn't as if we were saying, giving it to a huge public list, but we would give it to 1, 2, 3 people, whoever would ask, and they would be able to take it and run with it. They would be able to form, there was a MySpace page for John Edwards, but there was also a MySpace page for John Edwards' gay and lesbian supporters that was run by this awesome kid named Arthur, who, made his own logo, we gave him the policy information that he requested. He was able to form that into kind of like flyers and opinion pieces and make, stickers and buttons and things that he could use to support Senator Edwards in his own way. And we just gave him the power to kind of run with that and do what he wanted to do. We never said, hey, you should start this page. The page was there. We just said, we're really glad that you did this. How can we help you make it better? So, I can talk forever about this, so I'm really actually looking forward to the question period. But if I could leave you with anything, the thing that I want to leave you with is that, all of the things that we're talking about seem incredibly new or incredibly different and exciting, and you can raise $10 million in a day. But, that's at a very high level. When you get down to it in the day-to-day of what most of us are dealing with our candidates or organizations or, whomever it is that you represent, you're dealing with this smaller scale, and you need to know where the conversation is happening, and you need to be part of that conversation.